The window, the latest study I read about the window for the full decarbonization of aviation is still expected to be between 2040 and 2050. So that, in the most pessimistic scenario, it's close to 30 years from now. So what can we do in the meantime? And that was what I was being interviewed about in Forbes magazine, and that was what we do in Goodwings, which is enabling you to have your emissions calculated and verifiably removed.
Welcome to Podcast and Business. I am Juan Carlos Giraldo from Boston, United States. We are all concerned about climate change. We also know that business travel has a huge impact on the environment because it emits large amounts of carbon emissions. To reduce this impact, we have platforms like Goodwings that help you remove CO2 from your trip, transportation, hotels, and even your meals. In this episode from Denmark, we have Christian Moeller, CEO of Goodwings, to explain how this platform works, what is the business model, and what is the main goal of this interesting travel platform. Christian, how are you? It's a pleasure to have you today as a guest in my podcast, finally.
Finally, yeah. Thanks, Juan Carlos, for having me. I'm more than thrilled.
Oh, no, thank you so much. Christian, I will start with this question. When you were featured in Forbes, I read the article. The article mentioned that the travel and tourist industry fell by more than 75% after the pandemic, which is understandable. All industries were affected by that. And companies in this field must look for better solutions to reduce the environmental impact of this critical industry. The question is, what solutions are we talking about?
So you're absolutely right. COVID impacted across industries and in particular travel because everybody was locked down, so to say. I think one of the things that we realized was that we could actually still communicate, do business, interact using online tools like Google Meet or Zoom or similar, services. So I think those services really, came to life during COVID, and I hope that we will continue to some extent to using those services to reduce the environmental impact of our travel. So now that we're coming out of COVID and travel is definitely coming back, some parts of the world we are close to pre-pandemic levels. Globally, we're probably at, I would say, 70 to 75% when it comes to business travel. Leisure travel is in many countries also back to pre-pandemic levels. And one of the trends that we see is that during COVID, we had time to reflect. We had time to think because the entire world stopped, right? So coming out of COVID, we see a growing, increasing climate consciousness that we bring into the way that we travel. We see a lot of companies, and we actually salute that, who cut down on business travel and use services like Zoom that I was referring to before to do their business. However, we also acknowledge that we do have to do business travel from time to time. But you can choose, for instance, to go by train and don't fly on certain distances. Or another trend, which is interesting, and we can see that in our booking data, is that business trips are typically a little bit longer now. So our clients do fewer trips over the year, but longer stays, which basically means that they pool a lot of meetings so they don't have to travel back and forth. And that has a positive impact on the emission levels.
Christian, in the article you mentioned something very interesting, traveling less. What do you mean by that?
Traveling less is first and foremost the amount of travel, because during COVID, it's not like we invented new airplanes flying on batteries or hydrogen for that matter, or sustainable aviation fuel. These are it's super interesting technologies and they're coming fast, but the window, the latest study I read about the window for the full decarbonization of aviation is still expected to be between 2040 and 2050. So that, in the most pessimistic scenario, it's close to 30 years from now. So what can we do in the meantime? And that was what I was being interviewed about in Forbes magazine, and that was what we do in Goodwings, which is enabling you to have your emissions calculated and verifiably removed.
I see. I know your point. Well, we know that airplanes emit around 100 times more CO2 per hour, than that another kind of transportation. Speaking about business and how we can, change or looking for solutions, the travel will be always with us, right? Everybody like to travel, even to road trips to go to another continent, right? But I think, in my opinion, business models in this travel industry must be reinvented and become more ecological. The question is how. One is the technology. What is your opinion? How is reinvent the whole business model, the whole industry?
I mean, that's a really good point. I think it's very evident to everyone that we need to find new ways of running our businesses in travel. And that really calls for innovation, and especially business model innovation among airlines and online travel platforms and other travel types of companies. The question is how. What I found before I started Goodwings 6, 7 years ago was that if you look at the online platforms who basically control most of the travel today, right? Very few people book their flight directly with the airline or the hotel directly with the hotel, but most people prefer a online platform where you have an overview of your past and future bookings. So if you look at the allocation of revenues in those companies, I'm not going to mention any names, but you all know them because it's all the well-known brands, right? And they all operate with the same, in my opinion, obsolete business model, which is about spending and respending more than 75% of the revenues on advertising. So when you place a booking for a hotel with one of our competitors, you will know that 3/4 of the revenue that is being generated by the platform, the rest, of course, goes to the hotel. That money will be allocated to more TV commercials, more Facebook, Google commercials, etc., to basically get you back to the platform, to be top of mind. And that, I think, is a symptom of lack of loyalty. Nobody really has a favorite travel booking
no
platform,
one.
right?
Zero.
No
You
one.
go for the price.
Zero.
But it's very interesting. People in this kind of industry go for the price. But why is the CEOs or all these industry are focused just in ads, which are very annoying, by the way, and very difficult to access, no user friendly. Why is that, in your opinion? Why the ads is the main tool in this industry, comparing, of course, with Goodwings that is more, is different?
The short answer, because it works.
Oh, I see.
Because if you want to drive like tons of traffic to your website, you need tons of eyeballs and marketing push. And that's really how the industry works. They spend so much money, most of the revenues, on the same ads over and over again. So they're always top of mind. So when you need to book a hotel, you go to the platform that pops up in your mind. And then it's all about converting you as a visitor to a booking.
Right. So even though they know that the way that we are traveling right now, or we used to travel, are impact negatively to the planet, right? And then increasing all the footprint.
Exactly. And exactly. And when I talk to the executives from these companies and platforms, they admit that they don't really dare to add too much climate complexity on the website, because what it could impact is you not ending up booking with them.
Exactly.
So they just fundamentally continue business as usual, which is not what we need today. We need a shift in the way that we manage our, what I would call, unavoidable emissions. Because I'm not going to pretend that if you book a hotel with Goodwings, you will not emit carbon. You will, because we have not developed, zero emission airplanes or zero emission hotels. So travel will be emissions will continue to be emitted in most parts of travel. However, it's up to us how we manage and deal responsibly with our emissions.
Right. But Christian, you know what? This is very interesting you mentioned that. All these things has to do with leadership. When I saw your participation in Stockholm 50, You know, you mentioned something very important. It was caught my attention, by the way, and it was about leadership. And we are living, you know, in the era of try to reach the net zero and focus on in ESG. And leadership is very important. And you mentioned that this industry is lack of leadership. Please explain a little bit that, because to me was the key point in your participation in Stockholm 50 this year.
Well, I think it's evident that we're facing an unprecedented change in our climate with extreme weather and droughts and so on. So we need to we need to change most industries, not just travel, but uh, shipping, electronics, clothing, textiles,
Media, etc.
media, agriculture, and the food production, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain industries that are so-called hard to abate, where we know that it's going to take a lot of time and innovation to develop new technologies that are less harming, and then it's going to take even longer to implement it. And that's one of those industries is travel. So I think from my perspective, and that's just my own personal perspective, I don't see very much leadership among the big companies in our industry. I don't see, I don't know any brands, well-known big brands that really push forward, try to nudge the clients, educate the clients on how harmful it is to emit 3 tons of carbon when you travel from, for instance, New York and come to visit me in Copenhagen. So I think leadership is about courage, and I don't see many courageous leadership teams among our competitors.
Well, they will listen this podcast. They will change their mind probably. I hope so. Let's talk about your company, Goodwings. Would you mind explain what it is, Goodwings, and how it differs from the classic booking portal that just we were talking?
I'd love to. I'd love to. So fundamentally, we are business as usual, but at the same time, far from it. Because on the surface, we offer you a platform which has around 1.3 million hotels. We have same hotels, same prices as the major platforms. The major difference is the way that we run our business and allocate our revenues. Because at Goodwings, we first and foremost focus on small and medium-sized businesses, and they pay us a relatively small monthly fee, which is $100 or $300 per month for the entire company. So it's relatively affordable, and that allows us to allocate all our booking revenues to projects that are removing carbon from the atmosphere. So when you go to Goodwings, you use the platform, you sign your company up, you pay us maybe $100 a month, which is basically not much, but it's enough for us to keep our lights on and keep developing the business, because now we have hundreds of companies doing that, and we hope to have thousands in the near future. So we can very well live off the subscription revenues from the companies, and in return, we are in a position where we can allocate all our booking revenues to these projects that are verifiably removing carbon from the atmosphere. So when you book a hotel with us, we calculate on the checkout page, there's a carbon calculator where based on your input, we calculate how much will you be emitting with your total travel, not just the hotel you're booking with us, but also your transfers and your flights, and of course your hotel stay. So if you're coming to visit me in Copenhagen, Denmark, emitting 3 or 4 tons of carbon, which by the way, is half of what an average European emits in a whole year, just to put it in context.
Oh, I see. That's very interesting because you are using a very high quality verified reforestation credits. How works when you guys, how Goodwings remove the emissions for our trips? I think it's something in Uruguay, right? A woods or forest there, right?
Exactly. So fundamentally, you can remove carbon from the atmosphere in two ways. With technology,
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen these facilities. I believe they're on Iceland or I think Chile also has them. Which is called direct air capture, where you literally suck CO2 straight out of the air. Those solutions are enormous.
Yeah,
I
enormous.
also think very promising. However, maybe 10, 15 years into the future, we'll see them more widely used. Today, it's a prototype level and enormously costly. So if you want to get as much bang for the buck, climate-wise, everyone, all the big institutions, the UN, science-based targets, and so on, recommend that you invest, if If you must offset because you have emissions that you simply cannot avoid, then you invest in verified removal projects, nature-based. In our case, it's a massive area in Uruguay, this small country between Brazil and Argentina. And this reforestation project will remove around 7.5 to 10 million tons of carbon in its full project life cycle.
Yeah, so it's good because you are adding more green areas, quote, to the planet. That is fantastic. This is something that I really like about the business model that you are using in Goodwings. Christian.
Juan Carlos, can I just add one thing because this is really important.
Sure, please.
The type of project that we are investing in is very costly, which is why you will never see any of our competitors doing that on behalf of their clients, because we're paying up to $25 per ton. And the reason it's very costly is because it's verified. Because most of the tree planting projects around the world are not verified, which means that you have no guarantee that the carbon.
Exactly. You don't have the certificate.
Exactly. You don't have those types of not verified projects. Don't take into account additionality, permanence, the risk of double accounting, and so on.
So if these companies don't show the certificate, I would say there's no ethical behavior. You have to prove that you are doing the good thing for your customer, which are the pillar and the planet as well.
Exactly, and the problem is they might be good projects. I know some unverified tree planting projects that are really good, mm-hmm. but you don't have the guarantee, which is why we only invest in projects where there is this independent third-party verification that the carbon that we have told our client that we have removed so they can reach net zero with their business travel actually took place.
That's amazing. It's the key, and right now in the times of ESG, transparency is so important, and this certificate that you guys are delivering or sending to the customers will make the huge difference, between one company and another company. Christian, is there anything that you would like to add about Goodwings? I know you are focusing on small and medium-sized business, but feel free to add more information.
I'd love to. I actually wanted to ask you something because I would like to provide your listeners with a voucher so they can try Goodwings out for free.
Perfect.
So I don't know. I mean, I have a voucher which is welcome-F8. So welcome dash and then F for Foxtrot and then the number 8.
Yeah, perfect. I can add the link in this episode.
Exactly, perfect. Because what we want to do is we want to inspire more people to open their eyes to traveling more sustainable. Most people don't really know what does it mean, and very often we realize that people didn't realize that you could actually help removing carbon. How does that work? And often, of course, which is very valid, they also worry that it might be very costly. So we want to enable more travelers to see, it can be easily done, and it can be quite affordable. So the voucher that I just mentioned, and would be great if you also could put it in the episode. That can be used up to 10 times within each company or twice per email, and it holds a carbon removal credit worth of $1,000 per person.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good call to action for them, because also, as you mentioned in the beginning, education is so important. The customers, they don't know what is a carbon footprint. They don't know sometimes even what is climate change or what is removing carbon, etc.
Exactly.
One of the purposes of my podcast is educate through the experts. Or through companies like yourself to my audience, which is around the world. Christian, where people can contact you, please feel free to share the webpage of Goodwings or etc.
So to all of you listening, thank you so much for tuning in on this episode. This is something that is really close to my heart. We need to be able to continue to travel, but in alignment with our climate concerns. And we work every day to make that happen. Check out our website, goodwings.com. If anyone wants to reach out to me personally, please do so on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to interact. And also try it out. Use the voucher. We would love to turn your next 10 business trips net zero with this opportunity.
That's great. This information will be in this episode. Christian, I would like to say thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. I am Juan Carlos Giraldo from Boston, United States. Thank you so much to everyone.